When you step into the heart of a Korean city, you are met with a forest of high-rise apartment buildings stretching all the way to the horizon. To some, it represents the pinnacle of efficient urban planning. To others, it looks like nothing more than a monotonous row of matchboxes. But this vast architectural forest is far more than just a place to live. Embedded within it are Korea's unique geographical constraints, its economic history, and the collective psychology of its people, all intricately engineered into concrete and steel. To understand this forest of apartments is to peer into the inner world of the modern Korean. The story begins with Korea's physical limitations, with roughly 70% of the country covered in mountainous terrain. The flat land where people can actually live is extremely scarce. Seoul, in particular, has an enormous population packed into a narrow area, making horizontal expansion simply impossible. For Koreans, apartments were never just buildings, they were vertical territory, flat land stacked layer upon layer into the sky. Much like Hong Kong or Singapore, Korea found a rational solution to the limits of physical space through vertical concentration. This vertical territory functions like a small city within a city. Korea has a charming term for this, sulsaegwan, meaning everything you need is within slippers distance from your front door. It is essentially the globally celebrated concept of the 15-minute city, compressed into a single apartment complex, with supermarkets, hospitals, tutoring academies, and high-quality fitness facilities, all within the complex. Apartments became an all-in-one system, offering busy modern residents maximum convenience with minimum effort. Yet behind this efficiency lies a reality we have long chosen to overlook. As apartment complexes erected towering walls and tightened security, the warm alley cultures that once defined Korean neighborhoods quietly disappeared. Each complex became an isolated island, cut off from the outside world, transforming homes from places of living into social credentials that signal a resident's economic power and social standing. Today, it is perfectly ordinary for a person's social rank to be instantly calculated simply from the brand, location, and square footage of their apartment. This standardization has also turned the home into a standardized financial asset. In Korea, an apartment is treated less like a vessel for personal expression, and more like a blue-chip stock that can be liquidated at any time. Because sellers choose the most universally appealing layouts to maximize resale value, the actual tastes of the people living inside are routinely sacrificed on the altar of efficiency. With home prices reduced to precise numbers, even the slightest gap in value between neighboring units is read as a signal that one's own worth is falling behind, trapping people in an endless cycle of comparison. For the older generation, however, this system was a genuine ladder of hope. During the compressed economic growth of the 1970s and 80s, the government's pre-sale housing system opened the door to homeownership for ordinary people who lacked large sums of upfront capital. In an era when apartment prices would multiply several times over between purchase and move-in, simply saving diligently and paying installments was enough to build real wealth. Apartments were the engine of the middle class, converting honest labor into lasting assets. But for young people navigating 2026, that ladder has become a wall far beyond their reach. Seoul apartment prices rose approximately 9% throughout 2025, then surged a further 15.7% year-on-year in early 2026, statistics that deliver a crushing sense of powerlessness. The average Seoul apartment now exceeds 1.3 billion won, while the realistic budget of most young people barely reaches half that figure. This is not a uniquely Korean problem. The housing crises faced by young people in London, New York, and Sydney are playing out here in a far more compressed and steep form. This vast divide has completely reshaped the way young Koreans see apartments. No longer a milestone of success, they have become invisible class barriers that entrench intergenerational wealth inequality. In a reality where no amount of hard work can keep pace with rising asset prices, young people are indefinitely postponing major life decisions, marriage, children, and other milestones, experiencing a kind of social paralysis. In the end, the Korean apartment is a deeply contradictory thing. It is a marvel of urban engineering that overcame a land-scarce geography, and an economic miracle that built an entire middle class. Yet at the same time, it is a cold measuring stick of class that divides people from one another, and for the next generation, a wall of despair. Korea achieved prosperity through vertical growth, but in doing so, left behind a heavy unresolved question: the horizontal gap that has opened up between its own citizens. And so we arrive at a question that is relevant to all of us: are we truly building homes in which to live our lives, or are we erecting great fortresses of capital that the next generation will be unable to bear? The pressure and alienation born from this vertical competition connects to yet another looming crisis in Korean society. Next time, we will talk about the laughter of children that is slowly fading from within these apartment forests. In other words, Korea's birth rate